sampattimev ca ato nibbana sampatti vinate samiccato.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to what we regard as a very, very important activity, a Dhamma discussion. And I'd like to introduce my teacher, Miss Sujin Borihan Wanaket. And she, as far as I know, she has been, for me, the greatest teacher that I have known other than the Buddha himself. And she's asked me to begin the discussion today. And for me, the main teaching of Buddhism that is different from every other religion is the subject of anatta. Because all realities have three characteristics. They are, we call anicca. I'm not sure what you call that in your tradition, but that means it's impermanent. Realities are impermanent. They are dukkha, unsatisfactory. And they are also anatta, meaning that there's no being or self involved with them at all. And that third one is the most difficult of the teachings to understand, because the idea that there is a self here has been ingrained lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime for eons of lifetimes, and we think that there is a being here. And to learn that there is no being here or there or anywhere else is the most difficult thing to do. And so today, because we just, it's so automatic that we think that there's a being here, that we don't do enough training to learn to reduce that sense of a self less and less, and to the purpose of reducing that sense of self is to finally eradicate what we call the defilements. And this takes eons and lifetimes as well. Think of the Lord Buddha, how many lifetimes it took him to become enlightened. And so this is what I thought we would start the discussion today on, the idea of the teaching about anatta. So, if there is no self, then what is it that drives actions, that drives events and everything to happen? And Lord Buddha taught about conditions. In Pali we call paccaya or paccaya, and they taught that there are 24 of these different kinds of conditions that when a condition arises, it contains within it the seeds of its result. So that we can use another word for condition, we can say cause. So every cause contains within it the seeds for a result to occur. And this is the main cause for everything to happen. Every action we do is based on conditions. Everything that happens that you can possibly imagine to happen is based on conditions. But what is being conditioned? If there is no beings, then what is it that's being conditioned? Who is acting? Okay? Who's acting? If there's no me, no you, or anyone else, then who is doing the acting? Who is getting up in the morning? Who came here today for a Dhamma discussion? Okay? Who did that? Well, if there is no you and me and other, we call these things concepts or panyatis. If there are none of those, then what is there happening? What is arising? Well, there are realities. And Lord Buddha taught about basically 4 different kinds of realities. We'll talk about 3. One reality is almost beyond our reach, and that is Nibbana. More than almost beyond our reach. And the other 3 are, one type is materiality, and the other type is mental. The materiality type has one type called rupa. And the mentality types are 2. They're called citta and cetasika. How many of you heard words, I'm not sure in your tradition whether you use the same terms, but the citta are like many moments, very tiny moments of consciousness that arise and fall away. Okay? And the cetasika arise and fall away with those citta, and they are like mental states. And understanding how these mental states arise and fall away and what they do is a large part of understanding our, and I have to speak in the conventional sense, is to understand our behavior. And also, in addition to our behavior, we interact with the rest of the world. How? There's no we here. There's no me. So how can I have to use I because that's the way the language is. So how can I interact with the rest of the world? Well, we have what is commonly known as 5 senses, and a 6th sense, which is we call the mind. So the 5 senses receive rupa object. For instance, the eyes. We'll talk later. We can use the more correct term, but for now, the eyes receive visible object. Okay, some people regard that as plain color, different color. In any case, visible object. The nose receives odor, which is a rupa. The mouth has tastes. The food coming in there has different tastes. The ears hear sound, which is also rupa. And the body is another sense. It picks up heat and cold, varying degrees of temperature. It picks up whether things are hard or soft, and it picks up whether things are moving or stationary. Okay? So all that is all we, supposedly we, with quotation marks around it, are receiving from outside. And in the process of receiving that, there is a process that happens so that those objects from outside, the visible object, the odor, the sound, etc., so that those can be cognized, understood, or identified, marked. And that's the only way we can know what's going on. For instance, right now, sound is happening. The visible object is happening. And so we learn about what we call a sense door process, by which the object coming to the sense, whatever that door is, we call it the mind door, the eye door, nose door, whatever. We use the analogy of a door. It's not really a door, but we use that as a symbol of that particular sense, whatever of the five senses. Okay, so what happens when a sound, say, comes to the ear? Everything, as we just said, is due to cause and effect. So a sound arising at the ear will cause certain things to happen. Certain jittas will arise along with jitasikas, and they will cognize that particular sound at that place, the ear. We think it's the ear. We call it an ear base as well. So we have to have citta, an object, the sound object, and a place where the three things come together. And almost immediately, this happens so fast, by the way, that within this snapping of the fingers, thousands of those processes have come and gone away. Okay? And as soon as that a sense door process occurs, immediately it gets processed in the mind. And the mind has memory, citta, that are memory and feeling about those particular sense, say that sound, whatever that was coming through the ear. And the mind then gives it a meaning for us. Otherwise it has no meaning. The mind gives it a meaning. It gives it, that's the sound of somebody talking. That's the sound of a bird. Oh yeah, that's the sound of whatever. That's the sound of running water. Oh, that's the sound of music. Whatever. Okay? Our mind gives it a sound. This happens almost instantaneously. When you hear something, it's almost instantaneous that you identify what it is right away, because your mind identifies it. Your mind is real. It's the Jitta and Jettasika. They are real. Okay? So that's all that's happening to cognize whatever is going on around you. Whoever's talking, whatever you're seeing, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're tasting, whatever you're feeling in terms of the temperature and all this kind of thing. So what's the importance of knowing that stuff? Why should I know that? What's important about it? Because that's important. Because the more we study those processes, the more we see that there is no self here. That's the importance of that. And not only that, once we know, or once we start to realize there's no self, then we start to be able to get rid of defilements. Now, I've left out one very important thing. How do we learn this? And the way we learn it is when you're a sense, say an object is coming through one of your sense doors. If there are conditions, we call a certain cetasika panya, which means wisdom or understanding. If there's the right conditions, this cetasika will arise, will come up, and it will be able to give you, or it feels like you are getting more understanding about the characteristics of the realities. But that's a very rare occasion. It doesn't always happen. But we can say that's the goal, but there's nobody around to make the goal happen. For instance, I can't say every day I'm going to sit down at 5 p.m., right, 5:33 right now, and Satipatthana is going to arise. We call this Satipatthana. Can I do that? No. There's no I to do it. So I can't do that. I can't sit and say, all right, every day from 5 to 6, I'm going to make Satipatthana arise. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible, because there's no I to make anything happen. There are only conditions to make things happen. But there are things we, with the quotation marks, can do so that there are conditions being set up for Satipatthana and understanding to arise. What are those conditions? Well, we can read the Dhamma and discuss it as often as possible. And when we do that, the second thing we can do is really think deeply about what we've heard or read. Sometimes we're reading something and it just doesn't enter the mind. And sometimes you're reading something and it really catches your mind, right? Have you ever had that experience? Sure. And when you think deeply about that particular aspect of the Dhamma, if there are conditions, Satipatthana will arise at some point. Again,